myself in the last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, we do have a quorum, Mayor. So
All
anytime-
right. Sounds good. We have to wait for everybody to catch their breath, get a cup of coffee. They're done singing now. All right, if everyone is ready, I'll call this meeting to order for the full council of the Lake County Council of Mayors for Groundhog Day, February 2nd, 2023. I'll save the groundhog joke for later. Mr. Director, if you would be so kind as to call the roll.
No problem. I will start with municipal folks we have and then work through everyone else, and then we'll see if I missed anybody. Stephanie Hannon, Bannockburn.
Here.
Mark Huber, Beach Park.
Present.
Darren Monaco, Buffalo Grove.
Present.
Bob Phillips, Deerfield.
Here.
Erica Frabel, Hawthorne Woods.
Morning here.
Michael Talbot, Killdeer.
Here.
Byron Coots, Lake Forest.
Good morning, here.
Michael Brown, Lake Zurich. Joe Serdam, Lake County DOT.
Here.
Clay Johnson, Lindenhurst.
Here.
Mayor Jacob, Long Grove.
Present.
Steve Shields, Round Lake.
Present.
Excuse me, Bob Miller, North Chicago.
Present.
Dave Brown, Vernon Hills.
Good morning, present.
Mayor Rybeck, Wadsworth.
Present.
Pat DeSpircio, Wadsworth.
Here.
Thomas Milliard, Waukegan.
Present. Good morning.
Morning, Mayor McKinney, Zion.
Good morning in the house.
Are there any municipal representatives I missed? All right, and we also have Ed Gallagher from Pace.
Here.
Jake Sid from CMAP.
Present. Thank you.
Mary Weber from CMAP.
Present.
Ben Metzler. John Vanna.
Here. Good morning. Here.
Did I miss anyone else? All right, we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Clemens. Next item of business is approval of the minutes for the August 25th, 2022 meeting. You'll find that in your packet as attachment 1, and I will surely entertain a motion for that.
Motion by McKinney.
Second by Talbot, Killdeer.
Okay, motion by Mr. McKinney, second by Mr. Talbot. Any questions on the motion, on the minutes? Otherwise, since this is a Zoom, Mr. Clemens, when you are ready.
Yes, and I'll just acknowledge, I see that Kevin Carrier from Lake County DOT joined us, and Karen Dalton Lang from Lake Barrington.
Perfect. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
So for the minutes, Bannockburn,
Aye.
Beach Park,
Aye.
Buffalo Grove, Deerfield,
Aye.
Hawthorne Woods, Killdeer,
Aye.
Lake Barrington,
Aye.
Lake Forest,
I'm gonna abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Lake Zurich.
Aye.
Lake County DOT,
Aye.
Lindenhurst,
Yes.
Long Grove,
Aye.
North Chicago,
Yes.
Round Lake,
Aye.
Vernon Hills,
Aye.
Wadsworth,
Aye.
Waukegan,
Aye.
and Zion.
Aye.
All right.
Sounds like all ayes, so that motion carries. Thank you for that. Number 3 is the PL funding resolution. And that has the number on the agenda that we're going to discuss briefly. And Mr. Clemens, you had the details on that.
Yes, so this is our annual funding resolution that directs federal planning funds that the Lake County region gets to Lake County DOT to provide staff assistance for the Council of Mayors. We do this on an annual basis. The Transportation Committee last week recommended approval of this resolution. So the Lake County gets about $185,000 in federal funds that Lake County DOT matches with about $45,000 of local funds. We don't charge dues for the Lake County Council. Lake County picks up that local match for those federal funds. So this directs those federal dollars to Lake County DOT to provide staff assistance. It pays for a portion of my time and Joe and some of our other planning staff to provide staff support for the Council of Mayors. So we're seeking approval for this resolution today. This is for state fiscal year 24, which starts July 1st of 2023 and runs through June 30th of 2024.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adopt that funding resolution.
Move approval. Deerfield.
Motion by Deerfield,
Second, Waukegan.
second Waukegan. Thank you, Mr. Maylard. Any questions on the motion? It's the, as Mike says, it's the annual one that we do to keep everything moving forward.
Yeah,
And-
Mark, you were here. I just have one question. I wasn't at the Transportation Committee last week, so I was just curious if anything came out of that. They're all good, we're all good.
Nothing on this one. This was a unanimous recommendation to
Okay,
approve this.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, when you're ready, Mr. Clemens.
All right. Bannockburn,
Aye.
Beach Park,
Aye.
Buffalo Grove,
Aye.
Deerfield,
Aye.
Hawthorne Woods,
I'm leaving. Bye. Bye, Mike. Oh.
So that'd be an aye from Hawthorne Woods, and I just wanted to thank Lake County DOT staff for all their hard work in keeping our program as great as it is. Thank you.
thank you. Killdeer,
Aye.
Lake Barrington,
Yes.
Lake Forest,
Aye.
Lake Zurich.
Aye.
Lake County DOT,
Aye.
Lindenhurst,
Yes.
Long Grove,
Aye.
North Chicago,
Aye.
Round Lake,
Aye.
Vernon Hills,
Aye. Thank you, Mike.
Wadsworth,
Aye.
Waukegan,
Absolutely. Aye.
and Zion.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, that motion carries. Yes, thank you for that. Item 4 is our the current Lake County Surface Transportation, or STP, I should say, program of projects, which Mike has up on your screen. And that was also in the packet. And he has some updates to provide on that we've.
Yeah. So really the next two items are kind of interrelated, but first things first on the council program. So we're in good shape. We haven't met since August, but we finished fiscal year 22. We did spend all of our money for fiscal year 22. We're one of I think 3 councils in the region that for the first 2 years of these new rules has not lost funding to that redistributed fund. We had 2 projects that were targeting the November letting in fiscal year 23 that actually got authorized by Federal Highways in fiscal year 22. So we swapped those with Highland Parks, phase 2 engineering, and the cost increase that had been given extensions. And so that allowed us to spend all of our money in 22. Those 2 projects that were on the November letting were a little bit higher, so we accessed redistributed funds to cover those differences. What that means though for fiscal year 23 is that we have just under $462,000 in our program that is currently unprogrammed in fiscal year 23. We had a discussion last week at the Transportation Committee about how to go about programming those funds. So the council does have existing policies on cost increases. Basically, if we have available funding and we have requests, we'll fund those requests sort of in the order we received them. If we have multiple requests, there's a hierarchy. However, the way that hierarchy was set up gave preference to projects that had already been let for cost increases or projects that were in the current year that are basically ready for a letting. Since we wrote those rules, CMAP staff, with the help of a few people down in central office at IDOT, have come to find out that the way they handle those cost increases for projects that already have agreements in at IDOT. So for everybody, just as a baseline, we submit those funding agreements. They go to IDOT, they get executed. If we then give a cost increase, we're amending those funding agreements to add additional funds. IDOT will process those amended agreements and they will get the state appropriation for it, but they don't actually go and get federal highways to authorize those additional funds until the original agreements are fully expended. So that usually takes several years. And what that means for the council is when, if we grant a cost increase and we're waiting for federal highways to authorize those funds, it means those funds aren't getting authorized in a given fiscal year, and the council as a whole is not expending our funds. We're not going to lose them. We can carry them over, but it means we can't access those redistributed funds at CMAP for projects that are ready to go. We have a few on the contingency list that are ready to go. So what we discussed at Transportation Committee last week was some changes to the cost increase policy. And I apologize for not getting this out to folks in advance. I did meet with CMAP staff this week with Kama at CMAP to kind of review this and see, are there anything just in sort of programming that was missing. We think we're on the right page here. But really, there's a lot of red strikeout things, but really we're trying to keep this relatively simple for cost increases and based on the discussion we had at Transportation Committee. So rather than look at this red line version, I'll pull up sort of a clean version with the revised text highlighted here, but really kind of 3 ifs. So if a project has already submitted funding agreements to IDOT, whether they're draft or final agreements, cost increases can only be granted once the council has expended all of our funds, and we would grant those cost increases through redistributed funds. If a project has not submitted it and the council has funding available, then we could grant a cost increase up to the 20%, which is the council max, so long as they're not at the maximum federal funding. One exception, I guess, to those that Kama suggested was if a project already has agreements in, but those agreements have been expended, at least 80% of them have been expended, then we could grant a cost increase through either redistributed funds or if the council has funding available. So a slight change, but I think what this does is it allows the council as a whole to have a better chance of spending our funds in a given year and accessing redistributed funds. There's about $10 million available, I believe, at that redistributed fund level right now. So if we're able to expend our funds, we have a couple of projects, 3 right off the top of my head that I can think of, that are basically ready to submit pre-final plans as soon as they get funding. And we have a few projects that are on the March letting that are not fully 80%. So if we're able to expend all of our funds for the year, we could pull in projects from the contingency list and grant cost increases It gives us, I think, a better chance to access additional funds for the council. So with that, happy to take questions, and see if there's any comments or discussion.
And as you say that, Mr. Clemens, for those of you that have been here in previous cycles and previous years, you've heard some of this before, and we usually have a pretty, as some of you have mentioned during roll call, a pretty good system of making this work, and sometimes even obtaining funds from other councils who are not as well structured as we are. So Mike's plan here leaves a little, this is the mayor's words now, a little seed money in the program for other things. And as he alludes to, there's another $10 million out there coming from other sources. So he stayed up nights putting this together, and it's probably going to work out with a very happy ending once again. Any other questions before we ask for a motion?
Mark, you're right. Can you explain again how we're gonna get the best of both worlds here? If on one hand, we can't get the council extra funds if we haven't fully expended, but there's a cost increase and we have to wait till the end. Can you explain that again? I wasn't
Sure.
tracking.
Yeah, sure. So right now, let's use a project that is targeting the March letting. We have a couple projects targeting the March letting. They have already submitted their funding agreements to IDOT for the March letting. So in order for us to grant them a cost increase, we would have to wait until after their letting, see what the bids come in at, and then we could grant them a cost increase by submitting an amended agreement to IDOT. So that's a relatively straightforward process. It takes some time to process the agreement at IDOT, but what we found out through CMAP and actually through IDOT central office is while IDOT will execute that amended agreement, they don't actually go and request the federal authorization for those funds until the original agreement is not only executed, but fully expended, like 80 to 90% fully expended. So that could be a couple of years down the road. And the council doesn't get credit for our funding being spent until FHWA authorizes those funds. So if we were to grant a cost increase for a project that already has agreements in by submitting an amended agreement, we're not going to obligate all of our funds in a given fiscal year because we're waiting on those original agreements to be processed. So the proposal is we could still grant that project on the March letting a cost increase, but we would do it in the future. Once the council has obligated all of our funds, we could do it one of two ways. Once we obligate all of our funds, we could access funds from the redistributed pot. Or once that project gets their original agreement to basically 80% expended, then if the council does have local funds, even before we've spent our funding, we could grant that cost increase. So rather than do the cost increase now, we would just do it down the road. That's kind of the proposal.
Yeah, so I'm sure you thought about it, but I'm not clear. What about if that's a cost increase and we've essentially obligated all our funds in one fiscal year that we have to spend in order to get the additional CMAP dollars for those that haven't? If there's the project's all, in line and we've decided on who's getting what, and then let's say there is no dollars available down the road, how are we going to reconcile that? Does that come out of the future year funding and it affect the potential projects that were in line or could be in line in those future years? Or are you really relying on the fact that, and we've always got additional funds from those that haven't expended?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's important to understand that, cost increases aren't necessarily guaranteed. What what the council has in our program is really all we can 100% for sure count on. That said, aside from the first year of the program where there was no redistributed fund, there has been funding available in the redistributed fund. I don't see that going away. I do think that there will be additional funding available. The way that the federal funding agreements with IDOT are worded, what it actually says is, this is your federal funding amount, your not to exceed amount. If the bids come in higher, you agree that you're going to cover the difference with local funds, with those non-federal funds. We always try to honor cost increases whenever possible. We're not always able to, but we certainly always try to.
Understand, yeah, and I guess that's, as long as that's clear, everybody understands you don't necessarily get those cost increases, but if we have zero available dollars, the agencies are gonna have to pay for the increases themselves, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good point. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to.
Beach Park, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I have a motion by Mr. Huber in Beach Park. Do I have a second?
Lake Zurich, second.
Mr. Brown, thank you for Lake Zurich. Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Clemens, if you will please call the roll.
Right. Bannockburn,
Aye.
Beach Park,
Aye.
Buffalo Grove,
Aye.
Deerfield,
Aye.
Hawthorne Woods,
Aye.
Killdeer,
Aye.
Lake Barrington,
Yes.
Lake Forest,
Yes.
Lake Zurich,
Aye.
Lake County DOT,
Yes.
Lindenhurst,
Yes.
Long Grove,
Aye.
North Chicago,
Aye.
Round Lake,
Aye.
Vernon Hills,
Aye.
Wadsworth,
Aye.
Waukegan,
Aye.
and Zion.
Aye.
All right, our next item. There we are. The 2024 call for projects.
All
So
right. So
we have the Regional Active
Just
Program
finished.
Management. Go ahead.
Yeah. We just finished our last call for projects and approved our new program in October. And so here we are talking about the next call for projects. They just keep on coming. But before I get into that real quick, just wanted to make sure everyone is aware CMAP currently has a call for projects open for four fund sources: the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality CMAQ program, the Transportation Alternatives, the TAP program, the Carbon Reduction program, which is new, and the STP Shared Fund. So those call for projects are open. Information is on CMAP's website. We ask that if you're applying, you or your consultant, whoever's filling out the application, get everything uploaded to CMAP's ETIP by February 24th. That gives Joe and myself about a week to review those projects and see if any additional information is needed. We're the ones who actually have to hit the button to submit it to CMAP by March 10th. So it just gives us a little bit of time to review and make sure everybody's got everything that they need. So that sort of PSA done. Looking ahead to the council's next call for projects, there is a pending rule change for the active program management rules that apply to our council and all the other councils in the region, as well as the city of Chicago. And one of the things that CMAP is that is proposed in that rule change that is to be voted on by the council mayor's executive committee soon is a change in when the next call for projects is and when the future calls for projects. So right now, the council does a call for projects in even years, January to March of even years, and CMAP does their call January to March of odd years. They're proposing to shift that forward 3 months so that the council's next call for projects would be October to December of 2023 instead of January to March of 2024. And what that does is when you remember the process of the call for projects, that's just the first part for submitting applications. Then we score and rank them, put a program out, and then they have to go through all of the CMAP committee approval structure as well after the council, which is why it takes until October. So this will push that up until June and would be approved at the June 2024 CMAP MPO policy committee. Couple things that does, it gets that approval out of October, which is the start of the federal fiscal year and is a busy time for CMAP's tip with carrying all the projects over. It also allows programs to be approved prior to that fiscal year. So we're not approving programs several weeks into the new fiscal year when funding, becomes available after the fiscal year has started. One of the things that I asked CMAP when they talked about this is, communities have sort of planned for these January to March timelines. So is there a way we can have some flexibility this first go around and not necessarily just lock it in October to December? So we are going to do that. We're going to work with CMAP. We may still open it in October, but maybe we close it towards the end of January or something like that to give people as much time as possible. Really, what we're going to do is we're going to cut down Joe and my time for scoring and ranking the projects to give everyone more time to be closer to what you were planning for your projects. So CMAP said they will build that flexibility in. We'll figure out a way to do it, but just wanted to give everybody a heads up that the call for projects will be coming a few months earlier than we originally thought. We'll give everybody as much lead time as possible and minimize this impact. But then moving forward, the council's future calls will be October to December of odd years. So wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. And then we had a discussion last week at the transportation committee about reviewing the methodology and scoring document. So we just made a change to that document in our last agenda item with the cost increases. But really the ask for everyone is if there are other suggested changes for how we go about picking projects or council policies, please let me know. The transportation committee, we did discuss, as in the past, of having a subcommittee to review the document. Didn't have a whole lot of interest, I guess you'd say. I think, we've done a couple rounds of changes, and so not a whole lot of expected changes, I would guess. So if there are any suggested changes, please let me know. If we start to get quite a bit, then I will reach out and we'll try to form a subcommittee for that discussion to bring a recommendation back. But so far, I've only gotten, I think, one relatively minor suggestion, but I think a good one. So the suggestion I got relates to resurfacings, and specifically resurfacings where communities want to include a bike path in there. So in our scoring right now, you get a little more credit for including that bike path in there. We think that's a good thing. But we also have a $1 million cap on resurfacing. So given pricing and everything right now, you get more points and a better score in the council program for including a bike path. But with that $1 million cap, you're essentially agreeing to fund it locally. And so I think maybe a pretty easy change to that would be if a resurfacing is just a LAFO, where it's just curb to curb, mill and fill, we keep that cap. And if the resurfacing includes a bike path or some of those other components, we don't apply the cap to it. So that could be a simple change, something that we can discuss at our next round of meetings. But examples like that are kind of what we're looking at. So if anybody has anything, happy to hear it now, but obviously, you know, doesn't have to be now. It's a long document, but feel free to call me or send me an email with any suggestions, and we will discuss them all at future meetings. Originally, the plan for the year was to adopt a new methodology and rule document at our last meeting of the year, which I think was October. Given that the call for projects is moving up to an October start, we will look to try to approve that, I think, in July, so that everyone has a couple months prior to the call for projects to really know what the document is. You know, we have until those last round of meetings in September, October, but if possible, I'd like to get that for everybody in our July meeting, so everyone's on the same page for the next call for projects. So with that, if there are any comments or questions or discussion, happy to hear them now, but send me an email or give me a call if anybody has any ideas for changes.
Great. Thank you for that. I see 5A is information, 5B, you're looking for approval?
I typed approve on the wrong line. This is just an informational item. So
Information, okay, good.
apologies for that. The PowerPoint's inaccurate there. So
That's okay. Okay, good. So then we're on to item 6, which is the CMAP ADA presentation. And now yours says approval, mine says information.
yeah, this is information again.
Okay.
And we have Jake from CMAP here to give us some information.
Good. Welcome, Jake. We're looking forward to hearing about the ADA presentation.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. My name is Jake Side. I'm a senior planner at CMAP. I've been with the agency for about 10 years now, working on various local technical assistance projects. Just want to thank you all for the invitation today. I actually had a chance to speak to the Transportation Committee last week, and it's great to be able to speak to the full council today. For both those who have heard the presentation and those who have not, this is pretty short, just about 5 minutes, and I don't have slides, so let's jump into it. So I'm joining you today to talk about a new program that CMAP has. We've developed this for municipalities in the region to come into compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So many of you know that the ADA was signed into federal law back in 1990, and I visited many of your municipal buildings in Lake County, and you've got ADA accessible ramps, doors, water fountains. But this program is really looking at those areas outside of those municipal buildings, our streets and our roads, making sure that those are ADA accessible and really available for everyone. You might not know that we have kind of a problem in Northeast Illinois when it comes to our accessibility on these roads and sidewalks. Only about 10% of the communities in the region comply with the ADA when it comes to roads and sidewalks. Of the 284 municipalities in the Chicago region, only about 25 have ADA transition plans. And these are the plans that define how a municipality needs to have make sure that its roads and sidewalks can be used by everyone. So compliance with the ADA is incredibly important on a number of levels. I'm going to just outline 5 of those for you. First, accessibility creates opportunity. Transportation is literally a route to connecting residents to jobs, education, and services. But people with disabilities face barriers in moving around the region. And CMAP's research has shown that 1 in 5 residents with a disability does not travel outside the home on an average day because of a lack of access. Second, there are enormous economic benefits to this work. Communities that are accessible welcome everyone, residents, visitors, and shoppers. And people with disabilities in the US have about $500 billion in annual disposable income, which they're more likely to spend in communities that are accessible to them. So, think about that on a per capita basis. It's, quite a bit to have in your community as well. Third, many people have or will have disabilities. We have an aging population here in the Chicago region, and the senior population here is projected to increase by about 1 million people between now and 2050, which is the date of CMAP's Onto 2050 plan. On top of that, 1/3 of seniors experience a disability that limits how they get around. And it's not just seniors, of course. Disability can affect any of us at any time. Fourth, everyone benefits from this program. Accessibility improvements don't just benefit those with disabilities, they make it easier for everyone to go about their daily lives. We like to use the example of the corner ramps on sidewalks on your block. Those ramps were initially installed for wheelchair users, but they're great for people pushing a baby in a stroller. You don't want to wake that baby going over that high ramp. People may be pulling a suitcase on their way to travel somewhere. So really, making sure that everyone benefits with those sorts of projects. Okay, and finally, the big one, it's required. Compliance with the ADA improves the resilience of our region. And by meeting these federal requirements, we can help ensure that our region continues to receive millions of dollars in annual transportation funding. I know we've talked about that a lot already in this meeting, but this is just another opportunity to get that done as part of your public works and engineering. So I've told you about the problem and outlined why it's important. So let's talk a little bit about solutions. CMAP would love to partner with you and your community to find solutions for accessibility in the region. So we have created a multifaceted program to plan for the future and meet you where you are. We're providing education and training for municipalities to give you a grounding in the requirements of the law, the reasons behind it, and how to comply with those requirements. We've developed an ADA toolbox with templates, checklists, and other materials to aid in completion of ADA self-evaluation plans and transition plans too. In addition, we're providing on-demand technical assistance to municipalities to guide them in this process, including engineering and public works teams. And these services come at no cost to the communities in the region. Now, a little caveat here, there are different requirements under the law based on the size of your community. The benchmark is whether or not the community has 50 employees or more. That's generally how it shakes out. However, all communities must complete an ADA self-evaluation to determine where greater accessibility is needed in the community. So this has been a very high-level summary of CMAP's new program. Just want to talk about what's been happening most recently with this program. You all were talking about the call for projects. Well, CMAP completed our local technical assistance call for projects recently as well. We selected 5 communities to receive consultant assistance to complete ADA plans in this upcoming year. Unfortunately, none of those communities were in Lake County, but we are hoping that with your help, we can change that in the future. Again, CMAP pays for all the consultant costs on these, and there is going to be another call for applications coming out in the summertime. So we'll be sure to link up with Mike on that to make sure it's on your radar. You might have also seen that CMAP is providing in-person training modules in the region between now and April. We've got our next one coming up on March 1st and 2 in April. Again, these are free trainings. And the best way to find out about those is to sign up for CMAP's ADA newsletter. And I can provide a link to all that information in the chat if it's helpful. And I can certainly answer any questions you have on the program now as well.
All right, any questions for Jake? It's a very thorough overview. It's too bad none of the Lake County municipalities qualified, but we have a way to fix that.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a multi-year program with several years of funding that we have secured from the federal government. So we're looking forward to working throughout the region in the years to come. And
as you say that earlier on, some of the municipal buildings, as I look at the names on the screen, some buildings, Mark, you've got a building that's I'll call it very modern. and I'm sure complies explicitly, is a little more challenging to bring a 1925 schoolhouse up to code. And Erica, your building was even more challenging because it wasn't even a house, so to speak of. You can tell us what it was.
A barn.
It was a barn. And a delightful setting, as it's been adapted. So good. I'm glad that CMAP is up for that challenge, as some of us are as well. Wonderful. Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jake before he leaves us? All right. Thank you. All right. Number 7, other business. Mr. Clemens, is there any other business?
Just wanted to highlight one thing. CMAP yesterday announced that they were awarded a grant from USDOT for the Safe Travel for All roadmap. So as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there is a program called Safe Streets and Roads for All that in order to access the capital funding side of that program, there needs to be a federally compliant safety action plan. So CMAP partnered with all of the counties in the region, as well as IDOT, to submit a joint application. We are going to be developing county-wide safety action plans, and they will look at sort of high crash locations and develop strategies for high crash locations, not just on county highways, but state highways, municipal roadways throughout Lake County. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to apply for those $1 billion a year program for capital improvements for safety. So just wanted to highlight, it was announced yesterday that CMAP was awarded those funds as part of their joint application.
Mike, can I jump in with that?
Yeah.
We also partnered with that whole thing. There are 2 villages included on that, including the village of Buffalo Grove. So we're very excited about that.
Yes. Thank you, Darren. Yeah. So yeah, the region came together. IDOT and the counties are going to be contributing to the local match. IDOT is contributing, I think, about $500,000 towards the local match for that program. And the region as a whole was awarded just about $4 million in federal funding. So, this is a good start for us to be able to access this future funding, and obviously having a safety action plan for Lake County will be a very important thing.
Okay, good to hear. And number 8, was there any public comment received, Mike, by email?
I have received no public comment.
All right. Well, it says the last thing on the agenda, number 9, is the next meeting is May 4th. Sorry to tell you, by the next meeting, we'll be missing something, and it's that white stuff that's covering the grass in your areas. As you can see by my screen, the Wadsworth Wally did indeed see his shadow this morning. And I brought some friends to help find him, but I think the beagles terrorized him. And between the sun and the beagles, he's back in his burrow. 6 more weeks of picturesque winter. The snow, I predict, will be gone 2 weeks from today. On that light note, I will declare this meeting adjourned, if that's agreeable to everyone else. And have a pleasant Groundhog Day.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, thank you.
One thing for
Thank you, Mayor.
everybody to note, the governor did announce that the COVID emergency declaration will expire on 11th. So until then, we can continue with remote meetings. After that, if we're taking action on the program, we'll need to have an in-person physical quorum, which is 10. So we can still continue to have hybrid meetings, but I'll probably be begging some of you to come on down to Lake County DOT for meetings to make sure we have that person quorum.
It'll cost you, Mike.
We can put
Sounds good, Mike.
put some donuts and coffee out.
All right, there you go. I'm in.
Yeah, a second. All right. Thank you again. And
Thank you.
Yes, we'll see you on the 4th, Karen.
All right, bye-bye.
See you
I-
later.